Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you buy on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. In 2016, Audemars Piguet launched the latest version of its Royal Oak Openworked. It launched the 41 millimeter double balance wheel Openworked. Well, in 2018, AP launched this. This is the double balance wheel Openworked 37 millimeters in rose gold, 37 millimeters in diameter, 10.1 millimeters thick. The case, if we just measure lug to lug, is 46.5 millimeters. And if we measure these little intermediate plots, that's what they're called, these outer links, then the total rigid distance across the wrist is going to be 49.5 millimeters. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you could see that this is basically a unisex model. It looks fantastic on my wrist. I don't see any reason to wear a larger watch. And in fact, if your wrist is smaller than mine, I would say don't even try the 41. Go straight for this. Not only is it fairly close to the original Royal Oak's 39 millimeter size, but like all Royal Oaks, especially on an integrated bracelet, there are some on straps, but especially on the bracelet, these always wear a size or two larger than their rated diameter. So think of this wearing like a 39 or even 40 millimeter round watch, and you get the approximation of the fit that might be best for you. Now it is flat. Not only is it 10.1 millimeters, but it's got a generously sloped bezel, so it will slide under a dress cuff. And you can see particularly down the barrel that the lugs are nowhere near the edge of my wrist. So again, this is a great watch for a smaller wrist. I think you can get away with a wrist as small as 13.5 to 14 centimeters circumference if you have that flat across the top oval wrist profile. Now, the reason I always say these were a little bit larger is because you can see that you can't pull the bracelet straight down vertically. Like you can't be 90 degrees to the case band. So these all wear a little bit larger because you've got that rigidity built in. But the tolerances are outstanding. I can run my finger along these side links, and if I pull the bracelet to one side, I can see the step down in links width, but I cannot feel the steps. It is that smooth. The finishing on the bezel and the case and the links and the micro links in between the primaries. This is what you're paying for when you buy a Royal Oak. It takes 9 to 11 hours just to hand finish this bracelet. That's just the bracelet, not the case, not the bezel, not the clasp, not the movement. You can see that the bracelet is held to the case using screws and bars, much more secure than spring bars, the way it should be. You can see removable links here are fixed using screws, not pin sleeves, the way it should be on a large, expensive watch like this. No pin sleeves, that's Tag Heuer territory. Screws, please. Patek Philippe needs to get with the program. AP is already there. Over the years, the clasps in the Royal Oaks have improved. The latest one uses thick gauge rose gold, a double deployant action with 2 swing arms, and then twin trigger release so it can't pop open inadvertently. You can see that there's some media blasting internally, but mostly satination. This is a robust clasp that closes sequentially, one side before the other, and it offers as much security as, well, an offshore. This feels like it could be the clasp for an offshore. It is a redoubtable bracelet. Now, jumping back to the case, you can see that it has complex faceting and that the character lines run perfectly aligned and unbroken from the bezel through the mid-case through the caseback. You can also see that the bezel gasket has been expressed in hairline form. You can just barely see that rubber gasket as a styling feature of the watch. We have a hexagonal crown that is a screw down. The watch is 50 meters water resistant with a screw down crown and a 50 meter resistance. This watch is surface swimmable. You can also see that the hexagonal white gold bolts that sit slightly recessed in the bezel, they have the same shape as the crown. That is deliberate. Now, the rounded octagonal profile of the bezel was inspired by a vintage diving helmet. When Gerald Genta, the designer of the original Royal Oak in 1972, designed the watch, he considered himself a jewelry designer first and foremost. So his dream was a bracelet that a man could wear that would be fully integrated, case, lugs, and of course links, but it would have a timepiece included because then as now it's a bit unconventional for a man to wear a strictly jewelry bracelet, but Genta, being a jewelry designer and priding himself in that fact, made sure that it wore as a bracelet that happened to tell time. Now the dial is one and the same as the caliber 3132. It's the same movement in the 41. Here it fits a little bit better because it's got a 26.6 millimeter diameter, so it's a more natural match for a 37 millimeter case than a 41. You can see we have gold gilded double balances, and you can see there are two balance bridges. There's one on the front, one on the back. Now we have rose gold hands, rose gold indices. There is a rehaut or a chapter ring outboard on which the applique rose gold indices are mounted. It makes it easy to read this watch, so while it's a skeleton watch with the logo ghosted and silk screened on the underside of the sapphire, it's still a very easy watch to read. And we'll do a lume shot so you can see that it's an easy watch to read day or night, maybe even a little bit easier in the dark. Now, it's an automatic winding movement. You can see an open mainspring barrel. That allows you to view the coiling of the mainspring, and with experience, you'll have a sense of how much of the 45-hour power reserve remains. Now, it has a beat rate of 3 hertz or 6 beats per second, and if you do wish to set it to the second against a reference time, there is a stop seconds function, so you can stop that balance wheel, both of them really, and set the watch to a reference time to the second. Now looking carefully, you can see we have a full balance bridge on both sides of the watch. The balance bridge is anchored on each side, which offers more support for the balance than a single-sided balance cock. You can also see a fixed stud holder. There's another one on the opposite side. On the opposite side, if you look carefully, you can see that the fixed stud holder is on a different side of the balance bridge. And because these are identical, geometrically identical flat hairsprings, by moving them 180 degrees out of phase in any physical position with respect to gravity, because these springs are opposed 180 degrees, one will be caused by gravity to slow down. The other, by an equal and opposite margin, will be caused by gravity to speed up, and they will cancel each other out. So what a tourbillon achieves slowly and laboriously on a pocket watch and only in the pocket, this achieves dynamically in any position on the wrist, canceling out the deleterious effects of gravity on timing. And because we do have this free-sprung balance where all adjustments are done using variable inertia masses on the balance rim, it's also more shock resistant and can be adjusted more precisely than with a mobile stud index. Now you can see everything's visible. You can see the hour wheel, the minute wheel, and the minute wheel pinion at center. That's called the motion works, and it drives the hands. And then you can see adjacent to it, we have the springs, the lever, the winding pinion, and the crown wheel that are part of the keyless works used for winding and setting. And this is the Audemars Piguet of your dreams, and one of the few Audemars Piguet watches that is as fascinating in its interior finish as it is in its exterior. We always say you pay for the exterior finish on a Royal Oak, and while that's true, on the double balance wheel Openworked, you're also paying for the finish internally. All these components are skeletonized, and you can see internally we have sharp interior angles too numerous to count. That is a flourish that you will not find even in a single example on many Geneva hallmark watches. You can see satination across the top of the bridges, engine turning on the base plate, satination and beveling on the steel keyless works components. You can also see endless beveling on the edges of the skeletonized bridges. Flip it over, it's just as attractive on the Caseback, with just as much attention to detail. This is one of the finest finished watches you can get from Audemars Piguet. A 38 jewel automatic winder, bidirectional winding action with ceramic bearings for higher efficiency, but also for smoothness. AP didn't want the rotor wobble of a unidirectional winder, and you can see adjusted in 5 positions, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. Note that even the countersinks for the screws and the jewels have been interior beveled, and all of the wheels satinated. It is truly special with triple finish on the rotor. This is a watch and a movement that leaves nothing to be desired. The best of the best in the world of AP and Royal Oaks. If AP is Holy Trinity, this is the best of that leg of the triad. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.